Thank you. Good evening. I call the meeting of the Falmouth Public Schools to order for January 24th, 2023. We will begin with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. If any member of the public would like to make an audio or video recording of this meeting, please notify me by raising your hand, either in person or remote, and I will notify the public for the Massachusetts public meeting laws. Do we have anyone who's making a recording tonight? And if you could just state your name for the record. Great, thank you, Gilda. Nice to see you. First, mission and vision, Melissa.
Thanks, Madeline. Falmouth Public Schools mission. The Falmouth Public Schools creates world-class student learning experiences. Our Clippers are empowered to pursue their goals with curiosity, integrity, and resiliency. Falmouth Public Schools vision. Clippers are creative, inquisitive, and engaged learners who participate in their community as socially responsible citizens. Clippers effectively communicate and solve problems that impact the world around them.
Thank you. Terry, your fishbowl.
My favorite. Okay, this is from Dustin, who's a fourth grader at Teaticket school. What's going well in your school? Would you like most? What's going well in my school is everyone in the school is having a great day. I like most in the school is math. All right. This is from Jackson, who's a fifth grader in Morse Pond. What would make school life better? Being good and following directions would make my school life better.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Terry, for the fishbowl comments, and thank you to our students. Public comments. Members of the public are welcome to speak about items that are not on the agenda. Comments should be limited to 2 minutes in length. Due to the open meeting law, there will be no debate or action taken on public comment items. For items on the agenda, the chair may accept comments from the public following the committee's discussion of an item. Additional comments and feedback can also be submitted by email to schoolcommittee@falmouth.k12.ma.us. Do we have any public comment this evening, either in person or remote? Let's check our participants. Do not see a hand up. Okay. Great. First on our agenda is student advisory. Hi, Anna.
Hi. So today I just have a few small things. The first semester is wrapping up this Friday, which is exciting. At the high school this past week was the beginning of protocols that are recently been put in place for the decreasing of vaping in the school bathrooms, and the monitors in the bathrooms, the vape alarm detectors are up and running. And teachers and students are taking the pass system seriously, as well as the limit on the number of people that are in the bathrooms. And all the bathrooms are open, which is a notable improvement. Coming up in the next couple of weeks will be the end of winter sports season, so they're wrapping up games. If you haven't been to one, hockey, basketball, go. And additionally, we have course selections coming up for the next school year. That'll be in a couple weeks as well. And then recently junior prom was announced. It'll be May 13th at the Seacrest, and after prom is looking for volunteers. If you have any questions or.
Great, thank you, Anna. Any questions for Anna? Margaret?
How are the monitors working?
How are they working as far as like,
Detecting people in the bathroom?
they have gone off and the staff has reacted, and students in the bathroom at the time that they go off go through like a safety search, and it has worked. There have been in this week, like students have been found with vaping in the bathrooms, and then everyone that was in there at the time has been searched and such like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Any other questions? Sorry.
Can you tell us about, you said that course selection for next year has started. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that's like?
Sure, so that's like coming up on the radar. We were like, this week, teachers are holding like information sessions, specifically like AP teachers are holding information sessions to try to get more students taking higher level classes and just kind of preparing for that. It'll be coming on, I think, towards the end of February, the actual official paper that we get, and teacher recommendation, keeping all that in mind.
That's nice that there's the opportunity to hear more about it.
Yeah, I was a sophomore last year, and so I didn't really this is a new thing this year, and it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Anna? And thank you so much for joining us and keeping us updated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you. Next is presentation of Falmouth Education Foundation. Lori.
Yeah, so I'd like to introduce Ellen Hewitt,
Hi,
and
everyone.
Ellen has a presentation for us. I said, you have a presentation for us.
I
so
do
pass
have
it
a
out.
presentation.
And Ellen, if you would set up one of these seats so that we can capture you on camera and close so that we can actually hear.
Thank you, certainly.
Ellen is our president of FEN.
And it is such a pleasure to be here this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about how inspired we all continue to be with the teachers and the administration and other staff members of Falmouth Public School. One of the best things about my new role is that I have an opportunity to look at a deeper lens to see what's going on. So for example, this year I had an opportunity to go to the convocation. I had an opportunity to go to the faculty orientation. I got to go to 11 Community Professional Development Day, and all of them, which is so exciting and helped me understand the importance of this work. I mean, it was important for the deacons, and so I'm just so glad tonight to have an opportunity to both share this, share my personal appreciation. Been an educator for over 40 years, so to have an opportunity at this stage of my life to continue to be inspired by the work of teachers and the entire community of Falmouth Public Schools is a real gift. So thank you. I also wanted just to give you some highlights, both in terms of the 21-22 year of the projects, and some highlights of that, and also some upcoming events too. And what I passed out is the impact report for 21-22, and also because that'll give you some more detail of giving some of the light. The pictures will give you some of the light, and I also passed out the update that Sonia beautifully gave me today, and she does every month in terms of what's going on with the partnership projects. And I'll go into more detail with that when I do my presentation, but that's what you have in front of you. So that, as I think you know, the mission of the Falmouth Education Foundation is to support education excellence and innovation in the Falmouth Public Schools. And as I said earlier, I'm watching that in action more so than I even did as a board member, and it's kudos to all. Since 2006, the foundation has awarded $1.5 million to hundreds of teacher-centered projects for the schools, for the district. These projects have been from every discipline, grade level, and also have impacted thousands of students. In 2021-22, we funded a record number of projects, which is pretty amazing, given that we were still dealing with the vestiges of COVID last year, but a record number of projects. We awarded 109 grants for a total of $258,218. The projects were, I think what was exciting is that I could see the themes in a lot of the projects there's a lot more cross collaboration than some of the earlier grants. That's true, which is some of the projects were for all fourth graders. Some of the projects involved different teachers in different disciplines in different schools, or the same discipline in different schools. So I think that was one of the themes. The other theme that I noticed increasing is an emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that was exciting. That's when I went to Beloved Community. It was exciting to see the alignment of where we were coming from and also where Henry was also spearheading. It's cool. So there are 5 grant pathways. I'm gonna just briefly describe each one and also tell you the number of projects that we funded and the amounts. This information is also available in the impact report, so no need to, not that you take notes, but no need, even if you thought of it. So the first one is the project grants, and the project grants are the ones that really spur the innovation for the year for teachers. They right now, it just was open, we just opened up the applications and the deadline is April 1. And so they'll be submitting up proposals for next year for 23-24. So the pathways for 21-22, we had 33 project grants. Which like I said, these are the opportunities for innovation, creativity. And since that's kind of the core, I think, of what we want to sponsor, it's just so exciting. You'll see that within the impact report. You'll see that the innovation comes alive in the pictures and also what students are saying. We also, those 33 grants were a total for $140,000. We also have 67 teacher opportunity grants. And the opportunity grants are mini grants. The limit is $350, and that's for an unforeseen educational need. And some kind of an activity comes up that teachers didn't know about when the school year started. So, something that they really needed in their classroom to help promote learning wasn't there, so they're able to apply for up to $350 for that, and it has to be unanticipated. And I just want to do a little footnote. That grant pathway is really growing this year. As of this moment, we have close to 80, whereas last year at the end we had 67. So right now we have close to 80. And I think part of what's important about that is I think that also gives teachers the encouragement to apply for a larger project. And there's not a limitation in funds for the project, but I think it gives some of the confidence. And I think word spreads, and it's spreading, and we're glad of it. We also had 2 student opportunity grants. And in the impact report that I gave you, in the second page inside, you see at the bottom, the 2 student impact, pictures of the students and also a little description of their project. Both incredibly creative projects. And the important, what I love about the student, I love all of these, as you may tell, as I talk about it, but the thing that I love about the student opportunity grants is that it is 2 or more students who design and implement their project. So these ideas came from the students themselves, the student oriented. So that I think, and they have, of course, a teacher that helps guide them, some who guides them, but the inspiration and the work is theirs. We also had 5 legislative earmark / partnership. And thanks to Dylan Fernandez, Representative Dylan Fernandez, we had $100,000 earmarked in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to work with Falmouth Public School to develop projects. And they're all of them are so very exciting. And that's the second paper that I passed out that kind of describes the 5 projects and where they are right now. They're ongoing. Of course, I mean, many of them are large, and so or circumstances were such that they were continuing on. I think the only one that was completed is the one of Kwame Alexander's presentation. The others are still ongoing. So Dave did his workshop, did a beautiful job, but the others are of a different nature. So that is any questions before I go on to upcoming events? I can tell you that even though they're in motion right now, the 22-23 year, the numbers, except for the partnership grants that wouldn't be awarded again, the numbers are pretty consistent. You have we're probably going to get close to over 100 of the mini grants teachers. We haven't yet had any from students, but I'm assuming we will as they know more about it. And we awarded 32 projects for this coming year. So it's remaining pretty consistent, except for the, like I said, the mini grants are like, they come in daily. So I say almost 80, but maybe when I get home, it's 82. So we have upcoming events and one thing I already mentioned is that the applications for the next project grant has opened. It's available on the website. Teachers have an opportunity to work on, we encourage them to work collaboratively. And many do, and the deadline is April 1. Decisions are made they'll know, teachers will know whether or not they got the grant or any kind of revision. It's a formative process. If something comes in and there's an idea that maybe a little tweaking might help, then that's suggested. But our idea is to give the money, not give the money. I've worked with foundations before, and usually that's not the approach. But we want to find ways of making sure that it has there's innovation, it has educational objectives, and then if there's a way to help pose questions to help, then we certainly do that. And connected with it is that there's a grantee workshop that's open for teachers. And that's where they can learn, and that's been advertised within the system. We also have it on our website, and that's an opportunity. We really want to do it for folks who haven't applied for a grant before. Because as you can imagine, some folks could get pretty savvy, and then there's other folks that we know have good ideas, but maybe they're shyer or they have not had a great experience. And this will be, we know that it will be the process will be a great experience for them as well as what their idea. So that's on January 26th, and it's at Zoom. It's from 4 to 5. And the program committee, the group that really makes the decisions and recommends to the board of the foundation, they give the opportunity to generate ideas and also explain the process and hopefully mitigate any kind of fears that folks might have. And participants can get 1.5 professional development credits for participating. That's another nudge, right? The other thing which everyone is welcome, everyone here is encouraged and welcome to come, is Back in Action. And that's when we have a group of different project presentations and it'll be at Coonamessett. And it's on February 8th from 5 to 7. And that's really a showcase of the projects. So I think a really great way, if you wanted to know more about what some of the teachers and the students are doing, that's a great time to come. There's hors d'oeuvres. So, you don't have to worry about not having supper beforehand. And, but I think anytime an opportunity, this is personally for me, that I have a chance to really get to meet the teachers who are doing the projects, it really deepens my appreciation for what they're doing. Otherwise, it can be very abstract, but that makes a big difference. And then the other information I want to share with you is I went to Gala. It's our fundraiser. And it's also at the Coonamessett. It's March 18th from 6 to 9. And it's really a time to celebrate. This year we'll be honoring Barbara and Gary Schneider. There'll be honorees. Each year we have honorees to recognize their work in the community. Both of them have done work in different forms of education. So that's part of it, but they've also added a lot to our community. And I think I got a chance to meet them more directly as a part of this process. And I'm always so struck by people who really commit for their lives, a service to their community. And they certainly represent that. And that's my overview.
Wow, thank you so much. Are there any questions for Leah?
It's always so impressive, all of this, the applicants too. And one thing that came up, I think in our last meeting, we were talking about PTOs, around grant opportunities. And I was thinking about these teacher opportunity grants, and that these are unexpected costs that come up potentially for field trips and things like that. And because those can be very timely and it's hard for teachers to have that time to write something up, I was wondering if FEF has considered maybe having a PTO be able to write a grant for something like that.
So I'm going to answer there's two parts to my answer. One is that for the mini grants, it's a very simple process. They need to be able to itemize the cost and to give a description of the project and who they're going to be working with, get permission from their principal or department head to connect what school they're in. And also be clear about the learning objectives. I mean, sometimes you can have this great thing that you like to do, but it might not be connected to education, and that's so we need to make that. The other is that if the, I don't know if the PTO, I don't think they would necessarily need help from the PTO in that way.
Okay.
But if there's something that would make a good project between the parents and the teachers, or the parents and the students, I think that would be the direction to go. In fact, tomorrow I'm meeting with someone from the East Falmouth PTO who had questions similar to yours, you know.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I think that, and I'd be welcome to talk to any of them, but I think we want to make sure that it stays teacher-centered, but the need can come anywhere, right? And the partnerships can come into both the PTO and the school itself.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking the project ones, I understand, are coming from the teacher and things, but I was thinking that maybe these other opportunities might.
I think that the PTO has an idea, talk with the teacher, talk with the principal, and it could be done jointly.
Okay, that's great.
Melissa. So it's funny that you mentioned that you're meeting with East Falmouth tomorrow. I assume it's for the outdoor classroom and gardens.
Actually, it's first, her name is Jess Cushing,
Sure,
and she's interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh,
She chairs that committee.
that's great.
So I'm probably gonna connect her to.
Years ago, my children went to East and I was on the board for the PTO, and we so like you just stated, jointly worked with our principal to get an FEF grant for the outdoor learning space. And this was years before COVID. This was like the outdoor classroom that had been sort of in the works for some time and had lost steam, and we kind of rekindled it, and it is kind of how it is today. So I'm glad that you mentioned that PTOs can collaborate with the principal and with teachers. FEF is very generous with us, and I'm still very grateful. Yeah, it was a lot of work, it was labor of love, but I love that you highlighted that, you know, thank you, Leah, for bringing up about the PTOs, because there's a lot of good ideas that come from PTOs, and, you know, where does the PTO, where does the president go when they're trying to move something forward? So, thank you for highlighting that, and thank you for everything that FEF does.
And thank you for that great example.
Yeah.
It's one of the first projects I visited, actually.
Yeah, it was a labor of love, and I think it was, yeah, I know it's still going strong. I'm super proud of it, so.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's wonderful, and thank you to all of FEF for making.
Oh, yes,
this
you're welcome.
without you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is presentation of affordable connectivity of the Affordable Connectivity Program, Dr. Clark. And hi, good evening.
Hello.
Your eyes are big. You have to go up as well. You have to go next.
We have to have a picture. Oh, we're gonna have a picture. Oh.
Them both have big hair. Thanks, so Dr. Clark and Mr. Eisenberg, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Well, good evening. It's nice to be back. Hard to believe that it was almost 20 years ago that I was sitting in a hat chair. But the time has been interesting since. It's very interesting while I was there, there's no doubt about it. It's also nice to be here with a superintendent and a school committee that clearly is committed to the well-being of every child and enabling every kid to reach his or her potential. I was in the central office when that banner went up, when NoGov started, when the DEI position was created. And it's wonderful to see that carrying forward in the spirit of this committee. And it's frankly, the equity mission is much of what brings David and me here to talk to you tonight. Sitting with me is David Eisenberg. And he is a person who actually drew me into this project. He is committed to the issue of affordability and equity in digital broadband situations. He worked with the FCT, which is the parents of this program. So he's the expert and I'm kind of the school spokesman on this, and we may get him involved here as we go along. I want to call your attention to Dylan Fernandez's quote up here, that high-speed internet is essential for modern life and should be treated like a public utility. I think we're all familiar with the term digital divide. It is the issue that lies behind the ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program that we're going to be talking with you about. In the national scope of things, the digital divide is somewhat rural, urban, with a focus on the needs of rural areas. And to some extent, we wouldn't believe it, but we are a rural area in that context. It also is partly an issue of competitiveness. We're in a locale where the provider is basically a monopoly that's controlled by Comcast. There are other places where there are multiple providers that are competing with each other. And it clearly is an issue of economic inequality. You saw this when COVID hit and we had to go to distance learning. You saw the struggles that some families had with the issues of connection. And so those are the issues that lie behind our interest in trying to make the most of the Affordable Connectivity Program. Let me see if I can make this work. Yes, there we go. Whoop. No. Ryan, help me with this. Oh, yes, we have.
Next slide, please.
There we go.
It's so focused.
All right. The Affordable Connectivity Program is actually part of the huge infrastructure act, the $1 trillion infrastructure act. Part of that was $65 billion focused on broadband issues. And the FCC is in charge of that. And the Affordable Connectivity Program is one in which various providers are taking part, and they are required for people who are eligible and apply to provide a $30 per month discount reduction in the cost of their broadband services and equipment. It's a federal program, clearly, and we have been finding, as we go on, and I'll explain further, some of the issues of trying to get the regulations resolved and clarified. But households qualify for ACP, as you can see here behind me. And in bold, if any children involved in that household have been qualified and participating in the school lunch program in any of the last 3 years. There are SNAP and other kinds of qualifications, eligibility qualifications, that also can make a household eligible without school-age children. Generally, households must apply to get the benefit, and that application process has not been smooth and easy. David has worked personally with some people who have been eligible and tried to apply, and it has taken him and those people, and he's very tech savvy, more than an hour to get through the application process. So that individual application process is not easy. And Ryan, what am I hitting you?
Yeah. That's a great question. You can't just like click the slide down. Like that's something.
So the individual household enrollment process is the one that has been going on in the community here. It's been the one that has involved families having to come forward with lots of qualifying information, sit with Comcast and apply. It is difficult. David has been involved in coaching people to do this. We realize that town staff is burdened, that school staff don't have an hour to take with each family that wants to apply to this program. And we were working 2 months ago to try to generate interest in a grant that would hire staff to help enroll. We couldn't get that put together, and that deadline has passed. So at this point, at least, there isn't the option to try to hire someone to help school and other community members. So where's Falmouth? As of early January, Falmouth had signed up 22 households out of approximately 8,000 that are eligible. Nationwide, I think the rate may be as high as 25%. We're not at 1% in Falmouth. And so there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of missing opportunity to make families able to get better connectivity. And we hoped, we're gonna try this again, or do you want to just come up and do it for me?
Really that same slide, so.
Okay,
Sorry. No, you're.
Yeah. So when we first came to Dr. Durr, we had thought, because we have a letter, and we gave it to Dr. Durr, from the U.S. Office of Education, describing how the schools could provide a more streamlined effort, we thought, because households that had students in the school lunch, school meal program were automatically eligible. And that if we could give Comcast, get a letter from the family, giving consent to release that private information to Comcast, that it could be a more automatic and large scale enrollment of families, households in the program. So it still is a benefit that the school meal program is an eligibility criterion. It's a simple one, it's a relatively easy one. A letter from the school, a letter from the family consenting to allow smooths that part of it out. We had hoped that by aggregating those and giving them to Comcast, it could be an automatic large-scale enrollment. When we first approached the schools, we thought that was the process. Almost the week afterwards, we were told, no, that they're pulling that back, they're looking at that again. We then found that in fact, they were going to move, it was in place and we could move forward. It's a little bit of a roller coaster. And just a few days ago, we found that in fact, there is no large scale automatic enrollment process. It still is going to have to be household by household by household, working with Comcast to enroll themselves in this program. A disappointment to us, and it will make it a longer, harder process. But we hope that by working with the schools, we can still make it easier for some families. The big but here is that we thought it was under review, and in fact, it isn't going to work the way we had the letter seemed to indicate it would. Comcast does not have a program in place to do it in anything but a person by person, household by household method. And so that's the time consuming part of this process. And we're ready to try to work with the schools in fleshing out a way to make this as comfortable to families and as easy as possible, but it is not going to be the big loaf that we hope we would be able to bring to you to help families get this reduction. And how well Comcast is going to work with the school eligibility piece of it, we're not sure. We have to work that out. They have not yet enrolled anybody in the program based on school meal participation, because we haven't worked that through and brought it to them. We feel that there are opportunities to provide information nights at schools, information tables, school opportunities to not only send a letter, but perhaps have people in school to talk to parents when they're there for other events or things of that sort. We are interested in exploring whether we can provide coaching for families. We have to look at those privacy issues and see how they work out. We we feel that it's really important to make this a cost reduction process for families. Comcast is in the business of making money, and we're a little worried that they offer the reduction for broadband, but at the same time, they're selling other kinds of services that bring the money right back in. And so we have to work out with Comcast, I think, and test whether we can get this really focused on a cost reduction program for families rather than a conversation in which someone is selling the idea that this could be a good add to their bill and it wouldn't cost too much, or if they give this up, they'll lose that, or, we're not sure how those conversations will go. David's had some experience that indicates that it isn't a charitable process for Comcast in this way. But we don't know. We have to see how that works out. Next slide, if I could get it. Thank you. This simply points out that although the school eligibility may not be what we hope it would be, and I didn't mention Alan Steinbeck, who is the third kind of member of this steering committee, who couldn't be here tonight. But our general community efforts are aligned with the kind of coaching and helping that it looks like is going to be important in the school context as well. And we plan to continue to work for making this program as broadly available as possible through the schools and through the community. We asked the school committee. Thank you, Ryan. There it is. To please be ready to endorse the importance of this as an equity and affordability issue for families. Again, I think back to the COVID experience that we had and what we saw there, and this is an opportunity to bring equity to that landscape. We hope you will endorse an effort to streamline this. This is not going to happen immediately, but this funding has to be reauthorized. There will be another round of legislation. And if we can get this school committee and other school committees to speak up for the importance of streamlining this process, maybe we can get that in the future built into the legislation. We hope you'll encourage Comcast to participate, again, not in the streamlined process, because we find that's not going to exist immediately, but to make it a user-friendly cost reduction program. As we have conversations with Comcast about school households, we hope we can stress that that's the goal. And we hope that you will be ready to support efforts, townwide efforts. If another grant opportunity comes up to hire staff to help with this process, or other kinds of supplemental funding comes through to help. We hadn't had an opportunity to talk to you. We hope this has been an opening conversation. And if something like that comes up, we can know that the superintendent and the school committee would be ready to look at those options. So that's our introduction. It is, as I said, a half a loaf rather than a full loaf, I'm afraid. We hope we'd be able to encourage you that you could help families in a much easier, larger number, but we're eager to work on this with you as best we can. David, you want to add anything at this point?
So at this point, I think the way forward is probably of some kind. If the school had regular channels to publicize the fact that there is a $30 discount per month for eligible households, that low-income households can certainly take advantage of this. Comcast has other follow-on programs. If it were possible to counsel or coach with low-income households, we could explore what they're spending for the internet now and whether there were ways to reduce that cost. Comcast has a really nice, fast package for people who qualify for the $30 discount. That's fully covered by the $30 discount that they don't particularly want to publicize, but it's available and we can help them. I see the way forward as perhaps the school could, I know that at some point in the back to school packet last fall, there was a leaflet. If we could send a leaflet every month or so, reminding people that this discount still exists and that there are other programs, that would be useful. If there were parents' nights and we could have a table where we could discuss lowering people's internet bills, that would be useful. Yeah, unfortunately, all of those are onesies and twosies of effort. My experience and apparently the national experience is it takes 90 minutes to 2.5 hours per household to get through the application process. We were hoping to streamline that. I'm in touch with Senator Markey's office, and Senator Markey is the most knowledgeable senator involved in telecommunications, so he'll have a hand in reauthorizing the Affordable Connectivity Program if it does indeed get reauthorized. And maybe we can get some streamlined procedures through that. And Dr. Doer has offered to write letters of support as necessary, and we may take her up on that as opportunities present themselves. More publicity to households, parents' nights, PTOs. I don't know. You tell us how we can help get the word out, because not enough people know, and the people that know probably look at it and go, oh my God, what a complicated process. There's 9 boxes that a household has to sign for this ACP application, each one of which starts with, under penalty of perjury, I declare that. 9 different boxes, okay? This is not easy stuff if English isn't your first language, or if you might have a relative who isn't fully documented, or you know what. So we'd like to engage in the dialogue and see how we can help some of these families gain this essential internet connectivity without putting fewer groceries on the table. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that we are unfortunately not, we don't have that full package, but we want to work with Comcast and with the schools and see what we can develop. So it's a project moving forward rather than a project that's all set and ready to go.
Excellent.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? Thank you.
Leah, well, it sounds like this is really not an accessible program based on all of these factors. So I really appreciate you putting all this effort in. My first question is, do you have a Comcast contact?
Yes,
Okay, so
I spoke with
locally,
her today, in
Okay.
fact, this
so
afternoon.
there's someone who you can kind of troubleshoot this with and talking about, you know, what is Comcast's mission with this, right? Because it seems like putting every stumbling block in front of families.
I'm not sure that representative has worked with the schools. They've worked with the senior center folks and with the human services and some other town agencies. So engaging her in a discussion about how it would work in the school context is going to be an important step.
Her job is community outreach for the greater Boston area. And she's been here, she met on July 7th with the senior center, the housing authority, the service center, and Falmouth Human Services, and myself. And as a result of that, the senior center and the service center, senior center and human services, Jill Bishop and Susie Houghton were able to sign up 22 households.
Okay.
And I've done another 6, but that's with leaflets going out and all that stuff. But you can't do it just once. You have to keep on it and keep building awareness. One leaflet in a household where people are going every which way and struggling to make ends meet probably isn't going to work real well. But you know, if the leaflet arrives when the Comcast bill arrives and they go, oh, look, then, you know, maybe a light will go on. But I think you have to keep, you can't do it just once. And so, yeah.
So you had brought up language access pieces. So it appears that this is not translated.
So there's materials in several languages. Spanish and Portuguese there are leaflets.
Oh, leaflet, yeah. So it sounds like, you know, thinking about like communication patterns is definitely one of the things that you've been working on. And, you know, for paper, that works for some. Many of our families, probably paper wouldn't be the best communication. We send home things and they might get stuck in book bags and things like that, and not actually get out to parents. So maybe there's some other ways that, you know, the schools.
These leaflets are all PDFs, so they are sendable online.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. But as far as the language access thing, so when they're, for the application, they're able to go on and fill it out in other languages?
There is language help available. We haven't run across, everyone I've helped is a native English speaker. But there are Comcast, apparently their program can put households in touch with language people who will help with those, who can speak other languages besides English.
Okay, so it might be that when you're doing these coaching sessions that you have an interpreter too there who could support, which would probably be a nice liaison for families. And then you had mentioned undocumented. Is there a requirement of having a social security number to be able to fill out this paperwork?
No. There's no, well, if you have a social security number, it makes it easier, but you can have a mass driver's license. And that's apparently available to households that aren't fully documented.
Well,
There's a
no.
fairly complex list of documents. One of the things that's worth exploring is whether school lunch displaces those needs and stands as itself.
No, it absolutely does.
And so it's a less threatening process to many families if the school lunch participation by itself takes care of all of this.
Right, but then if you have to put in that information when you're filling out things, then it would be a.
You have to qualify in one of the whole list of criteria. And there are ways even to qualify for income. Well, I haven't explored the corners of the space, so let me not speak out of turn.
Okay, but it's a complicated process that is deterring people for many reasons. And you add these other barriers that might be there for our most underserved community members, and it's more of a challenge.
There's room for nice surprises here. I mean, it's possible that Comcast will come and talk with us about the school process and say, you know, you're right, you don't need all of that threatening other stuff to sign up. We'll take the school lunch, that qualifies the person. We have people who can speak their languages. We wanted to talk to you before we go to Comcast to talk about these things. So that's one of our next steps, is to see what comes out of a discussion about school lunch as the eligible.
Lori and then Bill.
Yeah, I just want to thank both Peter and David, because this is extremely complicated. And we for quite some time, we have been sending out the flyers for families on our website. But we don't have the capacity to really know the ins and outs. And when I spent time, it's obvious that David has walked people through this process. And it's and to have the capacity to be able to even figure out all the ins and outs of it is one thing, right? And then have the capacity to be able to sit down. And so we've talked about some different ways of doing some outreach, if it has to be household by household, which it sounds like it now is. To be able to take it to the next step and be able to offer the support. So, you know, we'll continue to talk. I just want to thank you for going through all the process. And being able to work with us on what this looks like so that we can reach more families.
Happy to help. And by the way, I've only done 6 households, and I would welcome the opportunity to do another 4 or 5. If anybody knows anybody who might qualify in a wide variety of ways as being low income. And it doesn't have to be very low income. A household of 4 can make up to $55,000 and still qualify on the basis of income. I would like to sit by their side and walk them through the process and make the mistakes with them and all that stuff and try and figure it out with them, because that's the only way someone who doesn't qualify can see where the glitches are. And I think the experience for me has been incredibly valuable to do that. And we've already drawn some national attention to places where the process has failed as a result of my experience. So please, if you know anybody, send them my way. Laurie has my.
I'm apprentice, but I'm learning.
Great, Bill.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Sure.
I love technology. I think sometimes I'm addicted to it. Had a business trip last week where I flew to Indiana, was using Wi-Fi on the plane. Drove all over the state of Indiana and into Western Ohio, and was able to use my Wi-Fi hotspot in the middle of Amish country. So the access, the ability is there for us to have a connected world. But I appreciate the fact that you brought up the fact of how much there is economic inequality with the access to that technology. And I think we take that for granted. When I'm sitting on that plane and I'm working on work stuff or whatever, I take that for granted. And when we're streaming Netflix, we take that for granted. And so I appreciate you working on this. I think it's a very frightening number when we see that 8,000 households in Falmouth are eligible for this and only 22 have been able to access or 28 that you got with recently. But I think it's important for us as a school district to hear how many households don't have this available, or that it's a financial burden for them. Because as we move towards more technology and learning, it is creating a gap in education. And it's creating a gap in ways that we have worked very, very hard to close. And so when students are being assigned stuff completely on a computer, or that they need Wi-Fi when they go home, or they may not be able to complete it. And I think it's important for us to recognize that and understand that as a school district. And I want to thank you for bringing that to our attention tonight.
Thank you. One of these 8,000 households that qualified, probably 6,500 have Comcast services, and they're probably paying more than they need to for them. The other 1,500 are probably going to the library to do their homework or to McDonald's or something like that. But of the whatever 6,000 or so households, the many of them are subscribing to the minimum Comcast service, so they can't do good Zoom calls, stuff like that. So, yeah, thanks for your concern.
Hi, thank you again, actually, everyone, of the sentiments on, pointing out the diversity and how we try really hard to close the gap, so I appreciate your time. Couple of questions, how would, the families reach out to you? What's the best way for them to reach you?
My email is isen@isen.com.
Great,
And my telephone number is 508-548-5924.
excellent. So-
And if there's anyone who
Great.
thinks they might qualify, I don't mind, I'm there for them.
I just wanna, I sometimes, we have conversations in these meetings and things kind of get lost in the shuffle, so I appreciate you putting yourself out there. Perhaps it will be printed somewhere. And our families and not just our families, but our community members will be able to reach out to you and ask for help. I had another thought on this.
I hope that my phone rings off the.
You mentioned PTO meetings and meet the teacher night. Have you approached PTOs and principals to make that magic of that happen?
No, you're the first stop, and
Okay.
we're gonna work with the superintendent to see what we can do on that.
And we were hoping for the streamline, that we wouldn't have to go family by family, right? Which
Right.
make it easier. We're just learning that that doesn't look like that's possible, but now we've got to go to our plan B that we.
All right, and then I think that was it. The monthly leaflet, I guess, was just my only concern, that I just don't want to put any more, I don't want to use the word burden, but I don't want to put more on our staff than, they work so hard already, but it is an important mission that you folks are on, so just want to be mindful of our staff as well. Thank you.
And our approach to the superintendent was with the understanding that everybody's out straight and cannot pick this up. We have to find other ways to do this.
Andrea.
Yes, thank you. I had a question about the reauthorization and when that is up. When will that need to be happening? Do you have a sense? And I guess I'm trying to think, what's our time frame? What do we have to work with here? Is this urgent? It'll be up next year? Is it 2 years for reauthorization? Any idea?
So right now with the minuscule growth, there's about 15 million households on ACP. And it's growing slowly, but it is still in the right direction. They figure that sometime in mid-24, they're gonna run out of money. Their $14.5 billion will be gone. And so the authorization, if it's going to occur, has to occur this year. One of my concerns is that not enough people are applying, so it's not like Social Security where everyone is on it and needs to have it, and it's politically impossible to get rid of it. It is not politically impossible to just let ACP sail off into the sunset. We have to work to get it reauthorized, and that has to happen this year.
And any of the people who are able to sign up and qualify and they get the reduction, is that a permanent reduction on their bill?
It lasts as long as the money lasts. It's a reduction as long as the ACP stays in existence, which if it's reauthorized, that's longer than if it's not, than if they run out of money in 2024.
That's good to know. And I think in terms of publicizing this, which is what we're talking a lot about, I think it's great that, we're talking about partnerships, right? Because many people would qualify in many different areas, right? And so hearing it in different places, I think is great, right? You might get something through the school, you might also get it through the service center, and then the more hits, you know, maybe the fifth time, it'll spark something. So that's great. I also pulled up the website just to kind of see what some of the application looks like online. And in terms of that idea of, you know, forming coaching teams of other people to be doing this, sometimes just yourselves. You know, it does look like there could be information that is sensitive, so I think that you've already kind of gone through that thought process. I know we have our wonderful GIFs volunteers, there's probably a lot of people in that group of people who would be interested in joining a coaching.
If you could open the door, if somebody in this room could open the door to that, we'd love to talk to them.
Absolutely, we could do that pretty easily.
Okay, good.
So,
Sure.
and, you know, and people like that get, you know, Corey background checks and, you know, it gives you just another layer of confidence in those people to be able to help out with that. And I think we just need to find ways of promoting it. I know it's like $30 off a bill. And somebody might say, I'm not gonna jump through all the hoops, but if it said, what could you do with an extra $360 a year, right? That might get somebody's attention.
Well, let me just say, we kind of weren't gonna go to the next level, but let me just go to the next level for a minute. Briefly. Comcast, when they rolled out the ACP, they had a big Close the Digital Divide event at the White House. 20 national providers, including Comcast, national internet providers, including Comcast, were there. Each one of those offered a fairly generous internet package that would be fully covered by the $30 benefit. Comcast's package that's covered by the $30 benefit is called Internet Essentials Plus. It has a really nice, healthy, fast, robust, 100 megabit down, 20 megabit up connection that can support like 3 or 4 Zoom calls in a household. Plus the equipment rental is free. So if you can convince Comcast to sign up for Internet Essentials Plus, then your bill at the end of the month is 0. If that's all you're getting from Comcast. And they are not promoting that part of their program. They are talking about ACP, but not Internet Essentials Plus. We can help these individual families get Internet Essentials Plus. The retail equivalent is about $104 a month. So Comcast loses money on, they get reimbursed for the $30 a month. But then if they have a lot of customers that switch from their high price spread to this voluntary benefit that they announced at the White House on May 9th in front of President Biden and Vice President Harris and their other the other internet companies and the press, the national press. If they did that, they would be losing money and losing customers.
For the digital divide.
Yeah, they are committed to doing that technically, but that's part of the complexity and one of the reasons why I would like personally to talk to them and to get a volunteer core that wasn't tied at the hip to Comcast.
Kelly. All the things that everybody else said, and then one question and one comment. So if Falmouth Net moves forward, how does that factor in? Are they also obligated to provide something similar?
So if, first of all, if there is a ACP program in the future, by the time Falmouth Net is still 2 or 3 years away, at least some of the federal grants that Falmouth Net could apply for require ACP participation.
Okay.
If ACP exists, so there's a lot of ifs, but the larger picture is that the people who are driving Falmouth Net are absolutely committed to digital equity, one way or another. With Falmouth Net, there will be A, competition to Comcast, and B, a locally controlled company that really cares about the people of Falmouth, that's run for the benefit of the people of Falmouth, not Wall Street or, the headquarters in Philadelphia.
And then my comment is, as with anything that requires a lot of, people hours. Maybe something like a webinar that is recorded where people can watch or log or do it as, with instruction, where everyone is logged in at the same time. And then can then go back and watch the video and pause and do their part and pause and do their part with screenshots might enable you to not have to have someone individually for every single hour. I mean, I also, of course, don't know anything about the application, how complex it might be, so maybe that's completely applicable. But just
Those kind of exist, some people, there have been two of the people that I've helped, I've just pointed them in the right direction and they've done it themselves. So it's not out of the question. A video like that will, for a large majority of the less digitally literate households, it won't do the trick.
Margaret, you have the last
And
question.
I'm gonna send you for service here anyway. I want to thank you very much for doing this. I think this is wonderful. Thank you for coming. There are certain areas of the city that are more impoverished than others. And I'm wondering, I mean, coming to the school, I think hopefully everyone here wants to support you 100%. But I'm thinking about local churches. I'm thinking about local grocery stores where people go and flyers were really, sent to these kinds of places. With the information, for $35, you can get internet. That would be very helpful. I think the information should be more widespread, particularly in various areas.
I've been thinking about spending a Saturday morning at the laundromat with the leaflet.
Yeah, it's laundry, grocery store, and
There's a woman who's doing a low-income energy program, and she's got a schedule where she's in a different church every Sunday at the end of the service. And we were talking a couple of weeks ago, she said, let me try this for a few weeks, and if it's going well, then maybe you can set up a table next to mine and we can do low-income energy issues and low-income internet issues side by side. So yeah, great ideas, and we're kind of on it, but if you have more concrete ways of opening doors for us, even better.
and they were ethnic groups, Cape Verdean Society, the Navigator Club, all of those places where I know they have a chance for them, certainly they can benefit from this.
Please, if anybody has connections like that, just, you have my phone number and my email.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This was really helpful, and we look forward to the partnership.
Thanks for all the extra time. I know your time is important.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
And to see.
Thank you so much. Next on our agenda is the public hearing on school choice seats for 2023-2024 school year. So I make a motion to open the public hearing on school choice seats for 2023-2024 school year. Is there a second? I'll second. And it's a roll call vote, because Mike is zooming, so Mike.
Halen, yes.
Yes.
Well, yes. Oh, sorry, Terry. Yes.
Yes.
We can call me.
Now we can also a yes, my apologies. So the public hearing is now open, Dr. Woodward.
Certainly, thank you very much. So after reviewing the district enrollment, I am proposing the following numbers of seats available for the following grades for our school choice program for the 2023-2024 school year. So as we know, kindergarten, that would be to be determined. We still need to go through all of our kindergarten registrations. We'll get that information. We'll make that determination as we move forward. Proposing up to 8 seats in grades 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for each one of those grades. But please recognize that the location of the school would not be determined at this time. It would just be for the grade, not one particular elementary schools. And then grades 5 through 11, 8 seats per grade. And in grade 12, it would only be our current returning 11th grade school choice students. And then if approved, we would advertise and we would accept applications on May 5th of 2023. We would hold a lottery if necessary, if we ended up with more applications for larger the number of seats being proposed. We would hold a lottery on May 12th of 2023. And then on May 21st of 2023, we would send out our parent and guardian notification for those that would be accepted and then to the seat.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for Joan? Margaret?
And since I'm here, this may sound like a stupid question. Suppose you don't have a 6 in grade. Suppose you have 6 in grade 2, might you get more in another grade, 3 or 4? Would you open up those seats, or are they limited to that number in that grade?
They're limited to that number in that group.
Thank you.
Yeah. Joan, how does this compare to last year with the seats? With this,
So they're the same. We're proposing the same number of seats per grade as we did last year.
and I have one other question. How often do we do a lot? Did that happen last year?
Did not.
Did it happen the year before?
It did not.
Okay, so it hasn't happened in a while.
Correct.
Okay,
And the languages that we would propose up to that number of seats, it doesn't mean
Okay.
we have to fulfill all of those.
okay.
Bill.
Kind of curious, when we figure out like how many seats we have available and stuff, does a number of school choice students going out of district come into play with that, or?
So we do it both based on when we're projecting out the enrollment for for each class for the grades, so the class sizes and the enrollment.
Okay.
So I think if I'm not answering your question correctly, bear with me. So if I think some of the other data that we provided, we do, so we look up like how many students are like graduating, so how many would be graduating. Some of our school choice students, they may have actually been a school choice student this year, but they may have moved to Falmouth for next year, and then they would be still part of our enrollment, but no longer school choice. So that data is calculated.
That makes sense. And I'm not gonna ask you to try to break it down by grade level. But do you have a total number for this year of school choice students that went out of district?
For the students that are no longer in our schools, in Falmouth Public Schools.
Who
for this year.
chose to go elsewhere besides Falmouth?
Yes, so we do have it broken down on that second
No,
sheet.
I mean, total, like, not the school choice students that are, whether they're returning or not, just in all the students that would be districted for Falmouth. Do you have the number of students who choose school choice outward?
Oh, excuse me, forgive me, so you're not talking about students that are other
Not like a student from
residents.
Ashby that came over
coming
here.
here,
decided
applied
to go back. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have that data tonight, because I have for tonight, but the data for what we would be, the seats we would have for students that do not reside in Falmouth, but would like to attend Falmouth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we had it maybe 2 meetings ago.
I asked for a while back, but we got a number of students who were on IEPs. And I was asking for like school choice students and of those, how many were on. I still haven't seen that.
Thanks. Couple questions. You said that there were 8 seats available last year, the year before, and this year. Do we fill those 8 seats every year?
We have not.
What's the going rate? What's the going? How many kids do we get in?
The average number of students who are coming in, or kind of where the range per grade. It's variable across grades.
Whichever is easiest for you, sure, across the grades.
Would you want to pick them down?
Just a quick, like, I don't wanna.
So for this year, we have between, either, we have 2 grades in which we have no school choice students, and our largest, number in, so in one of our grades, we have 6 students, so, but probably more on average, there may be close to about 3 per grade, if that's what out those seats for this.
Okay. And then,
Does that answer?
There's 29.
right.
Yeah.
And then, I also just wanted to thank you for, not committing to which elementary school. I think that, I know that's sort of a part B to a future conversation, but I appreciate that being, upfront. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from school committee members or the public?
Oh,
I see one, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one quick question. With those 8 seats, if there's a lottery or whatever at the beginning of the year, how late in the year do we accept new school choice students?
So for applications for the other remaining seats, if we didn't go to the lottery, will be considered through August 26th. And then if there happens to be a need from that, we could consider that. Case by case for the number of potential openings.
All right, thank you.
And Bill, Lori has an answer to your question.
We have 70 students that, Falmouth students that are, choose to go out to another district, so 70 school choice out.
Thank you. Do you have the number of how many of those were on IEPs?
That was in last week's, I don't have it in front of me. Perhaps I'll have it in a minute.
Yeah, I looked at, I don't think it was, we had the total number of students on IEPs in the district. And how many of them left.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have broken down to school choice, so, yeah. if you
And
just
so
give us a
that was
minute.
in our last.
It was in the last meeting.
Terry, your hand is up.
No, I was just gonna take turns. Thanks, Joan, because it must be a nightmare because you have to make sure you have enough teachers. I mean, you want to take more, but you can't go down, so thanks for all the numbers and all of the data that has to go into it, so thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I make a motion to close the school choice public hearing. Is there a second? Second. And roll call, Mike,
Halen, yes.
Harry.
Yes.
Margaret.
Yes.
Wells, yes. Andrew, yes.
Let's
Yes. Now, the Marcos, yes. Okay, so. No, it's great, and I apologize for missing you. Okay, do you want to speak to the, you're working, okay, while you're working on that. Next on our agenda is the initial discussion of redistricting. And as many of you may know, there have been formal conversations in the past few years about redistricting, and then COVID happened, so everything was paused. And now what we want to do is bring this conversation back to school committee. And we want to make sure that we're going to discuss it over a series of a few meetings, and then ultimately decide whether to pursue redistricting and what the scope of redistricting would look like. And I just want to assure anyone who is hearing this publicly that we will be very intentional with our actions. There'll be numerous opportunities for community feedback, and we will actively engage stakeholders to pursue redistricting. So turn it over to Dr. Dorr. To be. I don't think the redistricting conversation.
I would just add as we have the thoughtful conversations over a series of meetings. That the school committee is, works out if we're gonna do this, the specifics, right? So, are you discussing, just the rebalancing of our 4 elementary schools. You know, are we talking K through 12 and looking at, different opportunities, of grade, reconfiguration? Which can lead into many possibilities, I guess, throughout. So I guess just as we're having conversations, if you could think of it, you know, whether it's a very narrow scope, it's a broader scope, and then at some point being very specific before we start engaging the community. So we know what we're engaging the community in what conversation.
Right, thank you for
That
that.
makes sense.
Yes, and in terms of our timeline, what I foresee is that obviously we're having our first discussion today. We discussed it again in February, and then by March, you vote as to whether or not to actually pursue redistricting, and again, the scope of the project. Before we open it up to focus groups and families. So are there any questions or comments initially? Melissa?
I thank you for this. I have been asking for this for many years. People have heard me say this before. We live very close to East Falmouth Elementary School, to the point that I could hear the announcement being made by the administrators in the building when the windows were open in my home. And yet we were zoned for Teaticket. So, we school to public school choice, whatever it was called, I had to ask permission from, Bonnie Gifford for our children to go to East, and the stipulation was I had to walk them, which in my head was pretty obvious, but, I thank you for this. I feel like this has been a long time coming. I think that, you know, the population shifts in a town over a time of, over a time. So it's good to kind of revisit this. I kind of like the further conversation without having it mushroom out or scope creep to consider, throughout the district. Does it look like, do we, how we've always done, K to 4 in elementary, do we do a lower level elementary and then a mid-level elementary? That's a conversation to come between now and March, I suppose. But I am grateful that this conversation is being opened up again, and that we are going to be very purposeful with this. And I do want to support Natalie in your decision to, open this up again and assure the public that we're very purposeful about it. Thank you. Any other? Terry.
A comment I had was, from the get-go in our plan is, if we do redistrict, can we keep the kids who are there until they're, like if they're in 3rd grade, please don't move. I know someone that happened to in Falmouth, and that was 20 years ago, and they have never forgotten it. So from the get-go, that can always be in the back of our mind.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Terry, because I think as we're sort of talking through this process, number one, it's not gonna happen in for September. We're looking at potentially 2025 even, right? Like being realistic. And I think that if we were to redistrict, it would start with the little ones, at least there's a sibling, and we can sort of talk through that. But to your point, it wouldn't be that you're in the 3rd grade and suddenly you're going to school for 4th grade.
Which did happen in Falmouth once.
It did happen.
Yeah.
People do take
Okay.
So,
I was just gonna say, and consider too, families, like, right, not just aging out for the current students, but the families being able to, to go through an age out as well. It's a consideration.
As someone who's moved from 3rd grade to another school to 4th grade, don't let that happen. I think we're gonna have this conversation and you talk about the wider issues. I think it perhaps if we start to talk about friends, instead of sort of mixing apples and oranges, talking about high school, it might be more helpful if we focus just on the elementary schools right now. And when that conversation, move to another grade.
So I guess I was gonna have the exact opposite. But I can see your point there, because when you start talking about families, the complexities start coming into play, and how to phase in any kind of implementation is not gonna be easy. But, I started thinking about just with what Lori outlined with some of the, bigger issues, why we were having this conversation. You want to think about what is best for students. And I'm thinking about how we have this conversation more holistically. So we're looking at everything together. Because everything from busing, right? You said, oh, you could go, but you have to walk. So that goes into it. We've had some initial conversations from the outside, who's looking at our buildings. I think we should really be looking at that holistically. Grade reconfiguration is very interesting. I think right now we have a setup out of necessity that has a lot of transitions during a very delicate time in child development, which is challenging for many, many students. So I would like to have a much bigger conversation about it, and it's almost like, even for the school committee, again, it goes back to sort of that retreat idea where we can sit there, hash out pros and cons, and put everything up, and sort of go through that process, and then definitely invite the community feedback into that, when we've had a chance to look at it.
Absolutely, it's important not to rush this, many meetings will occur.
So I think I have hopefully more questions than anything else. And I guess my first one is, what is the primary driver for having this conversation? And have we looked at, like you said, populations shift. So have we looked at going back years at how different, if it's around elementary, how have the elementary populations ebbed and flowed over time? And if they're low at one point, does that mean that they're going to continually drop, or do we see them bounce back? Because what I wouldn't want to do is to see a moment in time right now, upheave all kinds of things, and then have it shift immediately after, because I think we'll probably see trends over time. So before even, like, for me, that would be the first thing I would want to look at. And what is the primary driver for redistricting? Like, what is it we should even, why are we having the conversation? What do we think? What is the issue that we're trying to solve? Because I don't think I'm clear on that.
Right, we can briefly speak to that, I think, and Dr. Jordan can go into details on that, but looking at the last few years, there are elementary schools that are at capacity for space and programming, and then other elementary schools that have more availability in classroom size. And so we're bringing that up. So it isn't necessarily a snapshot. It's over the course of the last few years, noticing the trend of some schools having fewer enrolled or fewer students and other schools being at capacity. I don't know if you want to expand on that at all.
So there is, just in the time I've been here, some ebb and flow, right? When I first came here, Mullen Hall, had 5 sections of every grade. They were, we have teachers in the classrooms or in the hallways teaching, which we still do, but the trend now is moving from four classrooms per grade level, right? Will that continue, not continue? We don't know. Where North had pretty much 3 classrooms, per grade level, and then we had a influx. We have some that are at 4, a couple that are at 5. So there's, now will that continue? We went back down to this year as 3 kindergarten classes at North, right? Does that now continue as they move through? So right now they're very crowded, but as a group of 4 lead classrooms of 4, you've got a 3 and a 5 in there in between, but now we've got some 3s coming up. I think at your point, as you said that, it does tend to change. In different, where, Teaticket is, it's full. And we've got teachers in the hallways. So it's, and it's probably been our most consistent, to be honest with you. I think since I've been here, it's been 3 classrooms per grade. It's been pretty consistent on that.
Okay.
So it is different for each school. It's hard, and I think the trends are important.
Yeah, and everybody knows that, like, I live in Orange Front, so for me, if we're gonna have the second phase of this conversation, that's what I would like to see. I would like to see what the numbers are, not just for the building, but like you're saying, like incoming kindergarten classes. That, you know, we have this many sections, so we can anticipate that in 3 years, it's gonna look like this. That's something that I'm particularly concerned about. I just don't wanna take on something. You know, we also have the COVID issue where we don't know what the COVID fallout is gonna be from people having kids during COVID or not having kids in COVID. And we don't even have a maternity ward now, so we can't even guess what that's gonna look like. You know, I think that there are a lot of pieces of information that, that I would like, and to add on to your holistic approach, you know, we also know that there are more than 40 projects in the works, and those are larger apartments that are sized for families, and so, thinking about any redistricting in a way that takes that into consideration so that we don't create a problem where there might not have been one, would also be really, I think, really helpful to have, you know, to follow on your holistic approach. Anyway, so like I said, I got a million questions. Yeah, so thank you for that. So, you know, the intention of this conversation was to get that information. What do we need to just really have a robust conversation around that? And then also, I too brought up the potential 40B, you know, large scale. And Dr. Dorn, I talked about how you can redistrict in one particular area depending on availability. So that was also a consideration, or will be consideration in the process as well. I guess. Any other questions or comments right now? So please be thinking of.
I think we have a robust conversation. I just think we need to parcel out what we're talking about instead of just like moving from break period, whatever. And I want to support, Kelly, and I think that we really need to see, not just the number this year, but a trend over time. And particularly to consider we're seeing those in various areas, so we can make. And what's the, and I'm new here, so what's the capacity, you know, in different schools?
Right,
You know,
but it changed, to the point, it changes, and so I think
I mean,
it's
what do
the
you-
anticipation, the full capacity.
yeah,
So
how many classrooms? you
That's
have?
actually a very interesting question, because when the schools were given capacity, right, the teaching was very different. Right, so now, you know, the number of reading specialists, special education teachers, ELD teachers, that all need classrooms for students, the capacity for the school is very different. And that's never been established. So, you know, so basically you have 10 classrooms and you may establish a 25 per classroom and then you get a capacity per school, but that isn't how we teach now. So I could go back and give you those capacity numbers from that are very much outdated. I don't know how we would, I don't know that they're gonna be useful for today.
What I'm talking about rooms, how many rooms you have?
Yeah, okay, so there's an official capacity for a building, right? And then there's
What do you mean by capacity? I'm sorry. I'm interested.
bodies in a building, so, yeah, you're right, but if you spread out your tables in a restaurant, right, you can get less people, even though you could maybe fit more in, I guess, does that, I don't know if that's. Yeah.
Maybe try. The numbers you were given a while back, let's just say, for example, might have said that it's, 25 students in a classroom. Whereas now we look at the student teacher ratio where we don't want that many in a classroom and we need additional rooms for the special support services and things. So that number is now outdated based on that. Would that be accurate?
Yes. Right. Now, without officially doing that, we could probably go through and say what we feel like, is reasonable for today's time. Like we could take that per building and look at that. It wouldn't be the official building capacity when the building was built. That's all.
What I'm asking is, how many rooms you have in each school? Rooms. How many rooms you have? I mean, when you say capacity, you're talking about the numbers of people in a room.
Yeah, so
Does every school have the same number of rooms?
No.
Well, that's what I'd like to know. That's what.
we can do that, but knowing that, I may have 10 classrooms, right? But 3 of them, I have a special education teacher, an ELD teacher in one, you know, do you see, so they're not classrooms that can handle a classroom teacher and a class.
But-
Okay,
but
yeah, I guess it just,
I think just to have, you know, how many rooms there were in each school.
that would be very, so can I ask? As long as you know, like all the special programs that we have.
Yeah.
Yes,
no,
I guess,
I'm not-
yeah.
I'm not-
It does, very right.
That's the next level. I wonder how many rooms you have, so you know what the next level is.
Can we be very specific for our conversation for next meeting, what date so can we identify that, so I know what I'm. bringing
Absolutely, so
next
we're
meeting?
taking notes, and if you could send me an email around next Friday of any information. Yeah, and that was, because again, this is an ongoing conversation.
I don't know how many rooms are in each
Yeah.
school.
No, that's one of the questions I will have answers. So,
Yeah, and I think Margaret brings up a good point is when we're talking about students and buildings and so forth, it is nice just to have that basic empty template. So as ideas flow and as we, you know, think about things and stuff, you know, each of us can take on that creativity and try to come up with the best possible solutions with, and ask for additional information when we can, and, you know, how many of these rooms would you need for this? But I understand having that baseline template, that blueprint, that
yes,
schematic would be helpful to have. Yeah.
no, you're not, it's good, it's good.
Yeah,
to do like
we start with the basics, right?
exactly, and figure it out, and we have this discussion and proceed from there.
Yeah, well, this really makes my head want to explode. This is like so huge, but I just think principals in the schools, they know this stuff like the back of their hand. I mean, they're living and breathing in the schools. They know the capacity, they know what's needed within there. So I just think, I feel completely just not informed to be able to have any sort of conversation around this, because honestly, this is the first time I'm seeing something like this to talk about it. And I know that it did happen, like I think my kids actually, when I bought my house, we went through redistricting at the time, but I just think there are so many components to this that are beyond our school walls. And so I honestly think this is something that I would love admin team to look at and kind of, and then come to us with the ideas of what data points and what we need to look at. I don't think we can I don't feel comfortable getting a list of what things you guys are the ones who know, especially school-based admin. So that's just my 2 cents around this, or I wouldn't even know where to start.
Okay, yeah, and Melissa, just to circle back to what you said, I think that this is indirectly or informally sort of teacher admin led, recognizing that their schools are at capacity in some ways, so. Absolutely agree with you, this is a really big project, but, you know, and again, we could just discuss it and decide that maybe this isn't the time to proceed, but we won't know until we've at least had those conversations. Do you want to add anything to that? No. Okay, any other questions or, Bill?
Just to Leah's point, I think maybe it would be helpful if we could invite a couple of those administrators, and especially the ones that are in the schools that are full. And maybe hear from them and get a better idea of what they're struggling with and what, you know, like you said, what maybe they feel would be helpful.
Great suggestion. Any other questions or comments? Again, this is just the start of the conversation, that's why it's an initial discussion, because we want to get a sense of where we are.
There is one piece that I do think we do need to always make sure we're bringing into this, is our overall enrollment piece too, of just like what that trend looks like, so that's just kind of something that we need to be aware of. And then that's where the community-based things are. If there's big housing projects going on, how does that usually shift down, like historically, what does that look like? So this is where my head starts exploding. But there's just so many pieces of it that but making sure we're always thinking, looking at these trends in data, just like Kelly was saying, and not going from what immediately just happened or what immediately is happening in front of us. So more looking at the trends.
Great, thank you. So thank you everyone for your initial. Margaret, go ahead.
But if our office project goes forward, that could really shift the population of the town, because people work remotely. And so families could come in, and so that would be a real shift. And this may be another stupid question, but if a school is filled to capacity, can then the overflow be sent to another school, or is districting, and that's it? Well,
We can't right now because the boundaries are set and we can't do that. So even just for example, if we look at, if the housing project goes through on Sandwich Road, it is set within the boundary for a particular school. That school may be right now, to capacity that we feel like we can, safely have students and meet their academic needs in the building. So Natalie brought it up before, you could vote just to change that brand new neighborhood and where that neighborhood would then attend school would be one thing to look at. So you can change the boundary lines, but I can't arbitrarily do that. Like they're set, so that's where the kids go. I don't know.
Yeah,
Did that help?
but I'm saying, could we, if we set new boundary lines, also have a provision that if there is a place that is at capacity, that students could, particularly if they live close by, move to another school? I mean, could we do that? I'm asking how.
I don't know, we would have to find that out, so I'll look to Mary, but the only danger in some of that is parents move into certain areas, right? And then you arbitrarily change where they're going to school.
No, I don't mean to force them, I just mean, that, if there's a family, if there's an overflow, seeking volunteer to move to another location. This is sort of that, when we do that, when we just.
I mean, you come into busing, you come into, so usually in a neighborhood, the neighborhood all goes to a certain school because of busing. That people get complicated. We do have families that ask for hardship or whatever to go to a different school within the district, but then we don't provide busing, like they know they have to provide transportation, so there's like.
Harry.
Throwing into our mixture, sandwich changed its configuration, so I would hope we would ask for advice or sharing of knowledge from other districts that have done that.
That's it's on the radar.
Great, so thank you for your initial comments and concerns and request for information. Again, let's keep a list. You can email anything else to me, and we'll just bring enough information back at the next meeting. I know that Lori is seeking copious notes, and we'll have some of those answers for our next discussion. Next is to act on MBL High School Science Discovery Program field trip. Where you'd like to introduce that.
I'm gonna have it over to Carl.
Quick introduction.
Hello again. So, I'm a little biased, because we're gonna be out for a bit. But I will say that we are very lucky to have NBL in our backyard. And last year, there was a program which is, NBL started, I believe they started last year, maybe the year before, called High School Discovery Program. And the really great thing about Falmouth students is that thanks to government support, specifically targeted for Falmouth students, we can send our kids there through this for free. So last year, my daughter was one of the students that got to go to this program. It was a program about CRISPR, which is basically DNA manipulation and editing, and she absolutely loved it. Came home, she showed her pictures. She got to use some really incredible microscopy equipment. She was really excited. She's now in college for biology. Not that I wasn't gonna put her that way anyways, but it's an amazing program. This year they changed the program. So this year it's actually called
It's about hidden biodiversity, using eDNA and DNA sequencing. So basically what that means is, if I tested the DNA in this room after everybody left, I would find little pieces of everybody here, because we basically swap off our DNA. So the cool thing about this, and of course, I know people are probably going, that's really kind of creepy too. Yes, but from a science standpoint, it would be really cool because they can sample the air and say, oh, I was at the school committee meeting last night. So the cool thing is we can do this with water, we can do this with animals. So what the kids are gonna do is, they're gonna go to MBL, they're gonna take water samples, they're gonna plan where to take their water samples. We've already met with the scientists who introduced the program. They encourage the kids to bring water samples of their own, and basically they can then analyze those water samples, sequence the DNA in them, and find out which type of critters are hanging around in the water that they've sampled. So they can do this with salt water, fresh water. It's just an absolutely incredible program, and this year MBL has said that we can take 16 kids. So, and we had over 16 kids apply. So we had a lot of interest this year. So we have availability for 16 kids. It doesn't cost us anything. It's completely covered by donors. So it's an amazing opportunity. So that's pretty much it.
Great, thank you for that. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Sorry, I said a question.
Sure.
You said there was more than 15 kids that applied?
Yes.
How is it determined which of those 16 kids?
So what we did was we looked at what year they were in. We also looked at, did they get a chance to go last year? Because we want to obviously give new opportunities to students who haven't had a chance to do it yet. And then the second thing we took into account was, is this their last chance to try and get into this opportunity? Are they seniors? So we took that into account secondly.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Yeah, how do students apply for this program?
So we had an information session during Clifford Township High School. And there is an application that they fill out. There was an essay that they had to write about why they wanted to do the program, and then they had to give a teacher recommendation.
So my question is tied to that, because if you were to see, I know that for some kids who, whose families might not be able to afford an expensive trip to participate in something amazing, might just pass it by and not even attend the information session, so may never get to the point that they find out that they don't have to pay for it. And so I guess my concern for future years is to make sure that, it's not even a concern, is just to make sure that our guidance counselors, Henry, whoever it might be that's on the, on the ground, is actively reaching out to students who would really benefit from this like completely life-changing experience, and making sure that they have an opportunity to apply to attend. Because that's oftentimes kids whose parents are going to be able to know about stuff like this, and we want to make sure that it is as welcoming and incredible opportunity as we know it is, because we can read about it right now.
Right, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I made sure that on all of the announcements, all of the flyers that went up all over the school, said very clearly, this is a free 3-day program.
Fabulous. You made my day.
Because I was thinking of that too, and I'm like, if I saw that, I'd be like, my parents are not gonna be able to attend that. But it says clearly in a very bright yellow bubble that this is a free 3-day program.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciated that, and should start with a question.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second, roll call vote. Mike.
Halen, yes, sounds great.
Tara, you're a yes.
Bill Dorfman, yes.
Yes. Natalie Columbus, also yes, thank you so much. We appreciate that. The neighbor 16 is very happy. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mel. Next superintendent update.
I have 2 updates and 2 announcements, and I'll start with the update. What I want to do a little bit different tonight, and this really started because I visited the high school during the roller coaster day. And introduced it only the 2nd annual, and I missed it last time, so I was really excited to get there. But I was thinking about the opportunities, when Carnell was here last time, we talked about all the partnerships and opportunities our students have in and around, Falmouth. But there's great things just happening right in the classroom. And so I thought tonight I would focus a little bit on how students are experiencing what they're learning or showing what they've learned. So, basically their assessment piece. And so roller coaster day was for honors pre-calculus. And they had to do all the math on how do you design a roller coaster where it would actually work. So we drop a marble and the marble goes to the roller coaster and get to the end. And then they had to build their roller coaster, test it to see if the calculus that they did actually played out in an actual product. And it was a lot of fun. The cafeteria was full, teams of students had they had to show all their math on paper, and then how they translated that into an actual product, and they got to test it, and so they were being judged. But it just shows like the how we make learning fun, right? It's relevant, it's fun, it's actual real application of the work we're doing. And so it's very engaging to see that. So that was one of the things I wanted to share. Today I was able to sit in on the mock trial, and this has always been very interesting to me. And it's so we have a teacher now that was interested and got together the mock trial team and joined in. So students learn about the law, just the procedures, the civil rights. They learn about just general communication skills on how to listen and how to apply and how to analyze on the spot, and just the advocacy skills that they learn. So it's very interesting. I'm so glad we have a team this year and being able to demonstrate. So their very first match, being a brand new team, got very close. They were up against so they compete with other districts. So they were up against an established team, a very experienced team, and they came out with 72 points, and the other team came out at 77. That's huge, first time out. So that's really exciting. Glad we have that. At Lawrence, a brand new engineering project this year was the rail car rally. And so they learned about the history as Falmouth Railroad. And went to the Falmouth station as a field trip. And then they actually designed and built 10 old-fashioned railroad pump trolleys, and then they raced them. And so it was, from history to understanding what it is, to designing a product that was kind of related. So that's that real life experience. And the students, I'm going to send you the video because the video just shows the excitement of the students in this project. And then a new project at 6th grade at Morse Pond. It's called Bottle Science, and it's the bottle biology lesson, taking 2-liter plastic bottles, and basically that's their laboratory. And so they're looking at 3 things. They are looking at the conditions to actually grow something. So it might be plants. One student is growing tomatoes in this container. It's the measuring the rate of decomposition, and then also to create insect environments. So they're studying these using these 2-liter plastic bottles, so it's kind of exciting. But what they've learned, they're now applying, and I think that's what's really the exciting opportunities that Falmouth students actually have. So that's just a few things, and I wanted to show that the demonstration is so important. The second, we have now decided on a new math program articulated through K through 8, which is very exciting. I'm going to turn over to Dr. Tiger to talk a little bit about how we arrived at this, and it was a very long process, rigorous process.
Sure, thank you. We started on a journey with the Department of Education about 1.5 years ago, and they were sponsoring high quality instructional materials teams. So we had both a leadership team, which had 6 members, including our math coaches, our 3 math coaches, our early learning coach, and the grade leaders at Morse Pond, and then a broader curriculum council, which had representation from all of our schools, all of our grade levels, special educators, ELT teachers, and, they started looking for K-6. And then, our math department at the junior high school, at Lawrence School, had decided that they also wanted to be part of that work. So it started off with looking at, 8 programs rated, in Curate, as well as Ed reports, so the national level and the Massachusetts level. Was pared down to 5, pared down to 3, pared down to 2. When they got down to 2, they started doing site visits and field tests and interviews with publishers. And about a week ago, they selected iReady as the new program. And so the first time we actually had the continuity of one single program from kindergarten to grade 8. The K-6 implementation will be in full force next year. And then we may have over the next year, the roll up to grade 7 and 8 because it's contingent upon having the program prior to arriving in Lawrence School. And through that work, there's adaptive diagnostics, so we can help students create small groups over time and get real-time data as opposed to our paper and scoring. It's embedded within there, and it's a great opportunity to provide differentiation and be able to look at students' discrete skills in math and help them shore those up, but stay on their grade level or accelerate faster. And so one of the things that's part of our conversation is also looking at how students move forward to grade 8, and that one conversation that we have so that every student has access at the high school to a broader range of our upper level math classes. So it's been part of a huge conversation, about a year and a half in the making, and the decision was pretty recent.
I just want to thank Dr. Taylor, her team, and all the teachers who are involved. It's a rigorous process. It's a lot of time, energy, and to persist through to actually pick a curriculum is so. Just thank you.
Thank you, and
Finding a good program.
if I could extend an extra thank you to Robin Bauer, one of our elementary math coaches, who also was chair for the committee as well. So thank you.
Okay. So just a 2 announcement, kindergarten registration, we always start early, although anyone can come in and register at any time. We do a big push, a week, January, early February, and then again in March, because it helps us plan when we have those numbers early and we know what that looks like. So, help get the word out, but we're doing a big push January 30th through February 3rd. It's been it will be in the paper this week. All the principals across the district have sent it out in their weekly messages. I sent it out district wide. We'll continue to do so, but help us bring in families to register for kindergarten. And then the art show reception is February 9th from 2 to 4:30. This is the flyer is in your packet or at your table. And so it's the AP art, AP literature, and then the honors art students projects. And this is over the bridge. This was part of the trip that they took, field trip that they took and did their journaling in Western Mass. I'm not going to pinpoint exactly where they went. They went over the bridge and they did their journaling and came back and created their art. And so it is up at the high school now, and it's pretty spectacular. So, is that everything? That's it. Thank you. So,
Quick question, the mock trial at the high school, do you know who the advisor is there?
Yes. So it's Schwartz, right? It's Michael Schwartz. Yeah, he's actually new this year. He's new to this school.
It's a great program, I've been involved in,
Yeah.
so I'm excited to hear that it's.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so it's probably for Tanya, touching about the doing math program, and so I know that it's work, obviously, putting all that in. When those changes get made, there's obviously a need identified. So tell me about the current program and what was lacking that made kicked off the whole process. So I think. I'll put a couple of key pieces. I think one of the big pieces was that we lacked continuity, so we're kind of shifting, so how each program sequenced components of their curriculum didn't always align going all the way through the grades. When we especially elevated our equity goal, looking at how students go through their math journey and decisions that are making grades 6, 7, and 8 to be able to access upper level. A great majority of the materials were paper-based, so if we wanted to make real-time adjustments, we were still working within sort of the paper workbook process. And then the current program not having its own diagnostic embedded within it, we're also evaluating our benchmarking system and trying to fit that into the way that the materials are set up. So we tried to resequence. It didn't always work that way because it wasn't designed to be customized. The current program that we're looking to sunset was purchased when we look back 2010, 2011, and so we made some pretty considerable shifts, both in pedagogy and then digital access. So the more we talked about it, what we didn't want to do was keep adding on supplements in order to try to turn that program into something it wasn't, to meet the needs of our students.
And so that's great, and it sounds like you had a very thorough group that was looking at that and going through the process. How do you feel about general buy-in? Because I know it can always be a little disconcerting to make that change.
So we collected survey data at specific points across just the discussions, the introduction of programs. We collected it again pre and post field testing. And then each time we were going through it as we were funneling, the two programs we ultimately evaluated against each other both rose up significantly over the others that were evaluated along the way. And then they were almost completely tied across the way as we were surveying. So what we did was we pulled out our equity goals, we pulled out some of the client service and some of the experiences that we had cost and longevity of the program and the ability to adapt it within there. And as we were talking about those, it became very clear why one program came above the other. But we've done repeated surveys and opened up conversations. It's been part of faculty meetings and woven into some of our professional development because it fit in the pedagogical approach. So all of that's been surfaced along the way.
And good support for families as well.
Yes, and I think also coming along with conversations we're having about how we record progress and communicate with families, so both their ability to access. We looked at what individual student paths look like and how families can access and log in and provide support. Then also our ability to share feedback to help them understand what they have. And then we talked about having open tutorials, or almost like Kelly was suggesting earlier, we can record short screencasts that this is what it would look like if you're doing this exercise. So the exercise is named in the homework, as practice or whatever, we can put that in and kind of know what to navigate to.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for your update.
Next routine business, approved school committee minutes, January 10th, 2023, very much done.
Make the motion.
As a second.
Any edits to the meeting minutes? It's the perfect version. Yes, it's the perfect version, yes. Seeing none, it's a roll call vote, Mike.
Halen abstain.
Terry, yours, yes.
Yes.
Well, yes. Anna, yes. Let's keep yes. Eva Cummings. Now, also yes. Committee member appointments. Terry.
Okay, I'd like to make the monthly report as the DIPS liaison. This month, we learned, I don't know if you were aware, many school districts come to look at what DIPS does. I mean, and so it isn't surprising that Plymouth Public Schools is going to be here in a couple of days. They're sending a team because they would like to start this at Plymouth, in Plymouth Public Schools. Okay, this is National Mentoring Month, and it has to be noted that the DIPS program has been around 40 years, and it's thanks to all these mentors, the great mentors that long period of time. This right now is organizing and it has been organizing the No Golf Week, which will be next week. And the student of the month this month of January was Madeline Savings. So there's my report.
Thank you. Any other committee member report? Negotiations is ongoing.
Very true.
Wonderful.
Great, Andrea, go ahead.
I probably everybody saw in their emails that the MASC Vision 7 and the Cape Cod Collaborative are hosting the legislative breakfast on the 3rd. And it's gonna be virtual. So there's a sign up link and everybody can do that.
Yeah, and at 8:30 in the morning on Zoom. And then just in addition to legislative breakfast, anyone who has not yet filled in your subcommittee subscriptions, please do so. And then again, Kelly will go through them and make sure we have everything that we need. Any other committee member reports? Should Mike, no hands up.
Yesterday we met for policy and we talked about a variety of things. One was to update the bullying prevention policy with some guidance from Mary and just moving along. Policy is policy.
Policy and policy. Okay, there are motions to adjourn. Sorry.
Committee report. I just wanted to comment, about newspaper articles. I'm very pleased to see the articles about our teachers, and I think that they really deserve that. They're hardworking and they promote our school, and I thought that was very impressive. But I am a bit concerned about the tone, recently about some of the school committee meetings, and I was particularly perplexed at last week's presentation, where in fact, for two of the positions we were going to vote for, there was one person preaching that had negative comments, but there was not any information about preponderance of people who were supporting that. And that was a concern to me, so I just think that I would like to say that.
Thank you.
We had a motion to adjourn. I did motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry. No, seconds or second. I don't try that. Roll call vote. Michael.
Halen, yes.
Ernie Harris, yes.
Susie, yes.
Who else, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. No, now let's talk. Yes, we are very interested.